This episode of the Busted Wide Open podcast is brought to you by Blueberry. Blueberry offers the best media hosting, accurate listening stats, and their all-new PowerPress Deluxe sites, a no-setup WordPress website for your podcast with all the necessary links to share your show with the world built right in. If you currently produce a podcast and are looking for a better media host or looking to start a new one from scratch, head over to orbitaljigsaw.com/BWO and sign up for the best media hosting and a PowerPress Deluxe site to get your first month absolutely free. That's orbitaljigsaw.com/BWO, or just use the promo code BWO at checkout for your first month free. And with that said, enjoy the show.
Hi, this is Roseanne, host of California Dreaming, a podcast that brings you true crime tales from the Golden State, and you are listening to Busted Wide Open on the Orbital Jigsaw Network.
You're listening to the Busted Wide Open podcast, dropping the elbow on the hottest topics in sports entertainment and the world of professional wrestling. With your hosts, Nick Howell and Sir Ian Dangerous. Coming to you from the Orbital Jigsaw Network Arena in sunny Southern California. Welcome back to the Busted Wide Open podcast, but if this is your first time joining the show, I'd like to welcome you to episode number 81. I'm Nick Howell.
And waving my arms up and down to try to trigger Kane's pyro, I am Sir Ian Dangerous. And we are going home this week to Extreme Rules. That's coming up this coming Sunday for the WWE.
What is Extreme Rules, Ian? If you could describe Extreme Rules in 30 seconds.
I can't. Much like the WWE Superstars on their promo for this event, I can't really describe it because it really kind of beggars belief that they only have one or two matches that actually have any kind of Extreme Rules stipulations on this show, which we will get to when we go through Raw and SmackDown, the go-home shows for Extreme Rules for this weekend. But that's not all we have today. We have a ton of other things to talk about.
So much.
NXT 205 Live, of course. Plus, I was there at the G1 special at the Cow Palace up in Northern California. That was an incredible event. I can't wait to talk about that, not only because it was a good show, but because a ton of stuff happened during it. In fact, we're going to kick off with some of that in a second here. But we also have listener questions we have to get to, some great ones this week I can't wait to talk about, plus a ton of other stuff. There's a lot to get through this week.
Yes, but guys, if you want to keep up with the show throughout the week as we put these episodes together, head over to Facebook and join the Busted Wide Open discussion group. Just request an invite. We will get you in. Fun memes, lots of good conversations, and listener questions as well every week. You can also come hang out with us on Twitter at BWO Podcast. And hey, big announcement, we're going to be doing a live test next week before we go live on August 2nd. That should be in the big news, right?
that's bigger than the big news. We're doing that before the big news,
yes.
Actually.
So August 2nd at 5 p.m. Pacific. Just mark your calendars. That's when we're going to be doing every Thursday at 5 p.m. Pacific. We're going to be live on YouTube. So if you've not yet subscribed to that YouTube channel, you can find a link to it either in the show notes here for the show or over in the Busted Wide Open discussion group.
And what time are we going live on Monday again, Nick? We're going at
Monday, we're going to do a live
Pacific
test at 3 p.m. Pacific. So same thing, same rules apply. We'll be posting that later this afternoon with an event invite in Facebook. So again, yet another reason to come get into the Busted Wide Open discussion group on Facebook. You get all of these hot news and links. But Ian, where do we go from here?
I think we need to start off. We need to start the show the right way, and that is with the big news.
We've got to start things off with breaking news, like minutes ago.
This just happened.
Within the last hour, this just took place, and it is blowing up social media right now. Ring of Honor and New Japan Pro Wrestling have announced a combined G1 Supercard to be held at Madison Square Garden next year. But that's not it. Where is it going to be?
It's going to be in Madison Square Garden, but it's going to be on WrestleMania weekend.
What?
On April 6th, 2019, Ring of Honor New Japan Supercard at Madison Square Garden. So this is crazy on a number of levels.
More wrestling on more WrestleMania weekend? What?
I don't know if this could be a bigger thumbing of the nose to Vince McMahon if they actually tried. Obviously, there was some issues with Ring of Honor trying to get an event at Madison Square Garden. It was blocked, apparently, by someone high up in WWE, and Sinclair Group, who owns Ring of Honor, threatened to sue. for this. And I guess that all got dropped because it is officially announced now that Ring of Honor and New Japan will be having their biggest combined show of the year opposite WWE's biggest show of the year in WWE's house. Well, Madison Square Garden has traditionally been where WWE came from. That's where they were in the 70s as the WWF. Yeah. I mean, that was their home. They were the Northeast, and that was coming out of Madison Square Garden. So this could not be a bigger shot fired over the bow than the two arguably biggest companies outside of WWE doing this. I mean, the only way it could get bigger is if Impact jumped in as well. So
what's to rule that out? Oh my God,
nothing. But we already know that like the biggest stars from Ring of Honor and New Japan have been announced to be there. So they're going to make this as balls to the wall bonkers a show as humanly possible. And speaking of bonkers balls to the wall shows, a quick note from the G1 up north. We'll talk about this a lot more later in the New Japan segment, but we do need to talk about an injury that occurred there. Hiromu Takahashi took a really nasty bump from Dragon Lee. He was getting, it looked like a butterfly suplex that just went horribly, horribly wrong. Yeah. Landed on his neck and was able to finish the match and do some crazy moves after that.
That's incredible.
But then, went to the back pretty quickly and apparently collapsed backstage and was taken to a hospital. The initial report was that he had broken his neck, but apparently they're backing off of that now and saying it might not be as severe as that, but they're definitely playing it hush-hush out of New Japan. He's made it back to Japan now, and he's being treated there, but we're not sure the extent of his injuries. Or what this will mean for his junior heavyweight championship run, if he'll have time, because we've got the G1 for the next month or so. He's not involved in that. If he will be able to have time off to heal and recuperate, if it's a light enough injury, to be able to then come back and defend it without having to drop his belt because of this injury.
I'm thinking about next year as well, going back to what we were talking about before. So if you're looking at 2019, now you're looking at the G1 Supercard in April. You're going to have the G1 Special in June or July, and then you're going to jump right into the climax. It is going to be the summer of New Japan next year.
And they've just been building, because last year was arguably one of their best years of all time. Yes. This year is already poised to be as good, if not better. And then next year is just going to be a massive incursion into the U.S. market, thanks to the help of Ring of Honor. So, whew. Yeah, lots to look at there. There are other injury news we need to talk about from G1, but we will save that for the New Japan section. There's a lot more we have to talk about there, because we need to talk about there's tons of enormous things that happened this week. The other big one, of course, Brock Lesnar. If you watched UFC 226, you saw Daniel Cormier win the heavyweight belt and immediately call out Brock Lesnar, who was there and jumped in the ring, and they started shoving each other, and then Brock gave a epithet and curse-laden diatribe after this, in which he called out Daniel Cormier for the UFC championship. He did not show up, by the way, holding the WWE Universal Championship, which he also currently is hijacking, if you will. Here's the thing, man. What does this mean that Brock is now apparently going back to UFC?
Yeah, I mean, we know he's going through the testing regiment. So that's a clear sign that he's going back to UFC.
Dana White did announce he was back in the USADA, the USADA testing. Right now, his time frame for getting through that, for clearing that, so that he'll be able to compete legally, is January. So he technically could compete in UFC in January. We did just get confirmation from Wrestling Observer that Brock is scheduled to be there at SummerSlam. So that could be our answer right there.
I feel like I knew that already. I think since WrestleMania, and since it took that turn at WrestleMania back in April, that we kind of knew. We didn't really know coming out of it, but by now we know that he's booked through, what was it, August or something like. So SummerSlam.
He's under contract, but they didn't have any actual dates for him.
Right, but just like confirmed. WrestleMania, they could sign a new contract the night before, and who knows. But to me, the fact that he's going through the testing regimen means he's going to UFC.
Absolutely.
He signed something at UFC.
But
we
the
just
question
don't know
is,
it yet.
can he do both? Will he do both? And if so, what does that mean for WWE?
I don't think Vince would let him do both.
I mean, here's the thing that I'm curious about is how, and obviously there's a long history of this kind of thing, just spiting yourself. and that is and leaving money on the table. Why doesn't Vince see this as a chance to get exposure through other venues or anyone at WWE? Really, this is an opportunity for millions of other people to have awareness of your product, to then gain prestige on your belt. And I don't see any of this kind of cross promotion going on.
Are you talking about him? He should have gone into the UFC octagon with the Universal Championship on his shoulder?
Or the fact that on Raw, they didn't even mention that he was there. That Roman Reigns came out and had one small thing. Well, Brock was busy this weekend or something like that.
Yeah.
But they didn't actually take the time to say, that's right, our Universal Champion is going out and doing stuff other places and getting into very high profile situations other places. And I see that as money on the left on the table because it's one of those things that goes back decades with Vince McMahon, where if it doesn't take place in WWE, it doesn't exist. Okay. And he's kind of come out a little bit from under that umbrella, but there's still that kind of overarching theory that I don't want to give anyone else my rub somehow, and the thought that if the belt shows up somewhere else in someone else's promotion, that it somehow diminishes the value in WWE. It's a bizarre thing, but
I get his wanting to control it. I can certainly see him wanting to control what would happen, and if he turned that loose for it to appear on a UFC program, you're kind of handing what happens over to Dana White and Joe Rogan. Like, they were both smiling and looking like stupid idiots during that whole segment with Cormier, and I don't know. They weren't taking it seriously like you.
Well, because it was very WWE.
I know, and so take
very
a step
sports
backwards. As Vince, you kind of want it to be acted and taken very seriously and not laughed at. So I side with Vince a little bit here. If that's the case, then so be it. It doesn't need to be anywhere.
Has he watched his own show? I mean,
I know.
This is the thing: is that
Roman Reigns is your guy. I know. I get it.
If you want it to be taken seriously, let it be taken seriously. Put it in a situation where it's a serious sporting event, and maybe it's just that. Maybe that's part of it. Is they don't want the compare and contrast to happen. But whatever it is, Brock is back working UFC, and what he's going to do in WWE, what's happening with the belt remains to be seen. It really does just kind of underline the fact that it might have been a better idea to just let Brock lose at WrestleMania and let the Roman Reigns era begin there, because 100%. Now a lot of that, hate to use the word, but momentum is really gone. And a lot of this Roman, talking about he's the uncrowned Universal Champion and begging for this audience sympathy. It's not as and this is obviously a poor comparison. It's like saying I'm taller than Danny DeVito, but that's not as compelling a story as what we had going into WrestleMania. So I think compelling might be a strong word. That's hence what I said. It's a polished turd. It's the Band-Aid we wanted ripped off, and I think we speak for most of the WWE universe, at least the smarks among us that felt that way going into WrestleMania. Okay, let's just get past it. Now here we are, reset again, heading into Extreme Rules and then SummerSlam, going into SummerSlam with the exact same feeling. Okay, now we know. Let's just rip the Band-Aid off and move past it. But smart or casual, I mean, I don't even want to break it down into that kind of divisiveness. Anyone who's a fan who's watching the show was watching what happened at WrestleMania and scratching their heads. It was a really head-scratching move. So where they go from here, we will have to see. But one thing is for sure, to get there, we got to go through Extreme Rules. And to get to Extreme Rules, we have to talk about Monday Night Raw. And yet again, we open the show on Monday Night Raw this week with Roman Reigns coming out to tout how amazing he is, how it's his yard. Oh, but wait, not before we had this weird kind of backstage segment between him and Bobby Lashley where they confront each other, and Bobby Lashley says, I dare you to go out and call me out. I liked this. I'm not going to lie. I actually thought so. The thing that started off the show that my eyes rolled all the way back in my head like The Undertaker was this big, long video package talking about how Roman Reigns had, he was the uncrowned champion and he and Lashley were having this epic confrontation. I'm like, there's been nothing epic about the Roman Reigns Lashley feud so far. Like vanilla pudding. But, but good try, guys. Yeah. But the thing that sent home to me was that, yes, this is still their main feud. Even though there's no belt attached, even though we have a WWE champion over on SmackDown, this is still their primary feud, Roman Reigns and Bobby Lashley. And then starting off the show with it and having Bobby Lashley confront Roman backstage and say, call me out in the ring, dude, I dare you. Roman going out, calling him out, and then the two of them just not even being able to talk. They just had to jump each other in the ring. I thought that was definitely showing their hand that this is still their primary concern, this feud. And that being said, I thought that after weeks and weeks of it really not going anywhere, all of these segments, this whole opening segment was a really good way of just sparking some heat in it and sparking some interest, because while Kurt comes out and says, guys, stop fighting, calls the whole locker room out to break them up. They can't break them up. They're fighting up and down the ramp, back and forth, blah, blah, blah. We've seen it a ton of times before. They love doing this thing. Brock has done this pull apart brawl thing multiple times when he's
2 years ago at WrestleMania with Goldberg.
Great way to make the rest of your roster look like complete goobs. But whatever.
They were conveniently all standing at Gorilla 2 waiting to be... Anyway.
They're all waiting to go out for their matches, Nick.
Oh, of course. Oh, yeah.
They're all right there. That being said, we've seen it a ton of times before. It is really good to create some excitement, and it's hard not to get even just a little bit excited when these things happen. It was entertaining, and it did, I think, set a bit of a fire under this Lashley and Roman feud. It still doesn't feel like it should be the main feud of the card, but it did, I thought at the end of the whole thing, build a nice little fire under it that we didn't have before.
Yeah.
I thought the interview segments later in the show where they were both saying how much they didn't like each other kind of pulled some of that air back out of the balloon. But overall, I thought that of all the things they've done for this feud so far, this was the best thing.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think they should have opened the show with those kinds of the interview things, or had them throughout the show in the middle somewhere and closed the night with this brawl, locker room clearing brawl.
Agreed.
And that would have kind of set the go-home nature of this into the pay-per-view. Opening it up with it was all kind of downhill from there. And you kind of they blew their wad at the beginning and okay, we didn't really have anything to close the show with.
Yeah, I was really surprised by that. But what they did close the show with was really good as well, I thought. And that's what I think is the best feud going on Monday Night Raw.
Mojo
right
Rawley
now.
And No Way Jose?
No, that's not at all. Although that feud did wrap up this week, I think, with Mojo and No Way Jose finally having their match, and Mojo going over pretty convincingly and cutting a pretty good heel promo, I thought. But anyway, no. Obviously, that's not the best feud on the show. That would be Seth Rollins, Drew McIntyre, and Dolph Ziggler for the Intercontinental belt. What a shock. A feud with a belt is actually the most engaging thing on the show. Also because the three performers in it are doing really good work.
Yeah.
Although I thought that... So they started off with the segment where Seth comes to the ring and says he can't wait to get his belt back, and Ziggler and Drew come out and make fun of him, and there was some really, really lame jokes shot back and forth across.
I'm glad you said that, because that's what I wanted to really talk about in this. I thought the match itself, everything else was fine.
This led into Drew getting mad at Seth, and then Seth and Drew having a match at the end of the show, which was fine. But good. That's exactly... Yeah,
sheep
thank you.
Jokes.
Yes, and it's...
Making fun of a Scot about banging sheep.
Yep.
Okay.
Never heard that before. Seth Rollins also wondering if Ziggler had Drew McIntyre working for him because he's got pictures of him doing stuff. I mean, if anybody who shouldn't be talking about illicit pictures getting out, it's Seth Rollins.
Right.
But
peroxide in the hair was another one.
Peroxide in the hair is another. Yeah. So
Come on,
just
guys.
Lame jokes. But at the end of the day, what sold it was the fact that they reacted well. And Drew, when the sheep shagging joke, as a Scot, I'm sick. Okay, we get it.
Yeah.
It's an easy one. It's very low hanging fruit. But Drew sold it like a gunshot. And it really did. And, Drew getting passionate and running down and just wanting to murder Seth Rollins was a good look. And it did lend some fire to the match at the end of the show, which they gave some stakes to as well, which was great. If Drew McIntyre loses this match, he's banned from ringside for the Intercontinental Iron Man match on Sunday. That's good stakes.
That's good stuff. Great. I like it.
And it ended up really good with a nice little distraction from Ziggler and a monster curb stomp from Rollins onto Ziggler. Drew McIntyre taking advantage of the distraction and giving him the Claymore for the 1-2-3. So Drew will be ringside for the Iron Man competition. That was all good stuff, I thought, with a couple of nitpicking exceptions. I thought it was the stuff that we need more of.
Do you think having Drew at ringside in a type of venue like an Iron Man match is the right thing to do? Knowing that there's going to be interference, knowing that it's not going to be a clean thing?
I think if they go into it with the match booked like, yes, we all know Drew's going to get involved. Seth knows Drew's going to get involved, and then build it from there. I think that'll help. I think it will be fine, especially the level at which all of these guys are performing at now. It's nice to see Ziggler. The car was spinning out of control there for a while. He was going on a big skid. I think that's being righted right now, and as the trepidation that we had about him and McIntyre being teamed up at first is fading away because they are working some good stuff together.
No, mine's still there. Mine's still there.
I'm liking the dynamics.
I'm already 3 months ahead fantasy booking. Like, how are they going to split these two guys up?
Sure,
so
and
we can get Drew out into singles
Yeah,
competition.
but what they're doing that right now, given how tight the card is and how little wiggle room there is, I'm not mad with what they're doing about it right now. The other weird thing was that Jinder Mahal was trying to teach Seth how to meditate backstage, and it's like Mahal's gone back to being a 3MB punchline character again.
It's going to happen.
I think it's happening.
The reuniting is going to happen.
I don't know about 3MB, but he's going back to being his old punchliney self. Comedy character, no good. Also in the comedy character, realm? This whole feud with Kevin Owens and Braun Strowman is staying weird, with Kevin Owens showing up at the doctor's note saying he can't compete, so he's going to hang out in Kurt Angle's office for the entire episode, and being generally annoying until Braun comes in and tells him that he stinks of fear and he can't wait to get him in a cage on Sunday. Kurt making the match while in the office. I don't get this. I don't get this feud at all. I don't get what they're trying to show about Braun, who's coming across like a big, scary bully monster now.
Yeah.
I don't get what they're trying to show about Kevin Owens, who comes across as a useless heel, not one that can actually hold his own. He just runs away.
If we're not going to get vicious murdering Kevin Owens that we know and love, I kind of like Kevin Owens as the little crybaby chicken shit that's running around telling dad about big bad Braun and running away from him and trying to get away from everything. What my concern is what they're going to do with Braun. Like, none of this is going to matter in about 3 months when he cashes in and gets the championship.
What's this mean? So let's look at this on Sunday though. He murders if he murders Kevin Owens. And then what does that do for him? How does that help him in any way? I think it's massively slowing down.
How does it help either one of them?
Again, right. Well, it helps Kevin Owens if he's able to beat Braun on Sunday, but then where do they go from there? How does this continue?
So
does this go to SummerSlam? I mean, they need to keep Braun doing something to keep him away from the Universal title. Yeah, so I could see Kevin Owens pulling it off on Sunday, if only to extend this further.
Oh, and to say that we while they were in the office, Kurt Angle did book it as a steel cage match. I don't think we said that.
I did.
You did say that.
Match,
okay.
Yeah. And that was my whole thing. Is he hasn't? The point of a steel cage match is if someone keeps escaping, or then you make them get in a steel cage to make them fight. Well, here's the problem. Kevin Owens has been trying to get away this entire time. Like, he's been able to escape. Like, it's not like Braun hasn't been able to get his hands on him time and time and time again. Like, he hasn't been escaping. So I don't get the logic of this other than, hey, it's Extreme Rules. We got to have something. Here's a cage match.
Yeah, it's extreme.
So we'll see. I'm curious where they're going to go with this. But I'm not too happy with how they're treating either of these guys in this feud now.
They need to go back and watch that Sandman entrance video where he's smashing beer cans on his head to bust himself open before he ever gets to the ring. That's extreme.
And then the match was like nothing. It was all about the entrance.
Yeah, right.
People should watch that just because.
Right.
But in other news, we had Natalya and Nia Jax teaming up against Alexa Bliss and Mickie James in kind of a typical pointless tag match before a singles match. The only real takeaway from this was that Nia Jax was back to her dominating self, just dominated Mickie James.
Pressed her up in the air and then drops her.
Really strong going into this. Alexa looked like she was willing to get a kendo stick and take it to Nia. Nia took the kendo stick away from Alexa and then really awesomely, I thought, broke it over her knee and hucked it at her. I thought it all looked, that whole part. And then Nia's also her promo afterwards about how she's going to kick Alexa's butt. I thought that all worked to hype this match up a little bit. The rest of it I could have done without. Yeah. The whole, Natalya and Mickie tag team match, it was filler. But I thought the very end of this, I'm like, cool. All right. We got the last little cherry on top that we need for this Sunday. Let's go. Let's do this because we all know the outcome of this match.
Yeah. Next up, we had a whole big segment involving Finn Balor, Bobby Roode, Baron Corbin, and Elias. Elias came out to the ring, did his typical thing. And I don't really remember how this got to a tag match
Well, basically,
I don't know if I tuned out or what happened.
It had been
here.
set up that you were going to have Finn Balor and Bobby Roode versus Corbin, and they didn't really clearly say who was going to be the other person.
Right.
So when Elias was in the ring, we had no idea where he was really going until he called out Corbin, and they had a nice little sing-along, the Itsy Bitsy Balor, because there's this whole like small guy versus a giant thing going on between Finn and Corbin right now.
Sure.
That whole segment, of course, like most Elias bits was fun.
That was amazing.
And then we had a tag match where Bobby Roode ate the pin after an end of days. This obviously building up for the match on Sunday, Finn Balor versus Baron Corbin, which I am looking forward to. I think might be the sleeper match of the show if they pull it off. But the real takeaway from this for me was just kind of how far Bobby Roode has fallen.
Yeah.
Really.
And continues to fall.
Yeah. I mean, Elias at least still has kind of a place, even though he's not like, and he looked good in this match.
Yeah.
He doesn't have a match on Sunday, but when he shows up, it's a moment. When Bobby Roode shows up, it doesn't feel like as much of a moment anymore. And the fact that he's showing up on main event and eating pins in tag matches for matches that he's not even in for the pay-per-view, that's not a good look.
No, not at all.
Worried about the trajectory of Bobby Roode.
What's going on with Bailey and Sasha's therapy right now? I noticed that it wasn't Dr. Shelby this week, which I think kind of went WTF.
That was kind of all you need to take away from it. Yeah, that's all you need to take away. There's no Shelby. There's no nothing. We said last week, remember, that Shelby was the only good thing about the segment.
The saving at the end that he did, yeah.
Oh, just all throughout the segment, he was just great. It was great.
Yeah.
But this week we had a whole other therapist. We only had, I think, 2 or 3 segments where we saw them in therapy in the same room with a new therapist for some reason. We had one segment where we could actually hear them talking, and it was just, yeah, she doesn't like me. She's been mean to me ever since NXT, blah, 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 the same old thing. And then all the other ones, we couldn't really hear them. And it was just, by the way, they're in therapy, which is just, it's been kind of the story of this feud is, as soon as you turn on some heat, as soon as something good happens, they just turn the burners down and it cools down for a while. And it's just the stop and start is just not good for this feud. They need to get, like the heat that they had in San Diego when Bailey finally blew up and turned on Sasha. People blew up. It was great.
I did.
Now, nothing.
Yeah.
And we're back down to... And I can only think that they're saving this for SummerSlam to have some sort of callback to their match in Brooklyn. The difference between that match and this match is that match had months and months and months of intense build before it. So what are they going to have for this SummerSlam if they finally turn the burners up after Extreme Rules on this? And we've got 4 weeks of Bailey and Sasha getting progressively more vicious with each other.
I think they could do it.
You
they
think
could
so?
easily do it in 4 weeks. They've shown that they can do that, and with the history that's already there, I certainly think that they could pull that off for a big showdown at SummerSlam. I don't have a lot of confidence they're actually going to do it, though.
But here's the problem. Before, Sasha was the absolutely evil, despicable heel, and Bailey was the sweet underdog babyface. The hell are they now?
No, they have no identity, really.
No, that's my point.
Yeah. Next up, Bo Dallas had a match against Matt Hardy, and he won.
Boy, this
the
sounds...
B team is starting to beat the Deleter of Worlds on a consistent basis.
What are they starting to? This has been the story for the last few weeks. Is
that's what
individual B team has beaten Matt Hardy.
Well, yeah, because Bray drove his car like an idiot and whatever.
Crashed into people and was out for this week. But the Deleters of Worlds, I believe, have lost every single singles match in this feud, which I think will come into play this Sunday.
I've been trying to tell y'all.
Really?
I've been trying to tell
you
y'all.
have.
Watch out for those guys.
Okay, we'll see. We'll see in the pick'ems.
Okay.
Oh God, I'm going to take that clip. I've been trying to tell you the B team, they're going to be a big deal.
Yeah.
All right, we'll see when they lose this Sunday.
Ember Moon also defeated Liv Morgan and continues her winning streak.
Yep, she's on like a DL winning streak right now. I think it's just another one of those slow burns. They're just keeping her hot off to the side. They got 3 hours to kill, so might as well have her on TV. Keep her hot. Keep everyone thinking of her being a winner. And as soon as they have the time and the opportunity, jettison her up into the main event of the women's scene.
Yeah, I think we talked about this last week pretty extensively. It was they're just they're holding her there until they get past this whole Nia and Alexa thing, probably at SummerSlam. But look for Ember Moon to have a big second half of 2018.
Oh, big time. They're absolutely going to. But that's pretty much it for Raw, man. We are ready to go to Extreme Rules, at least on the Raw side. But to talk about the other side of it, we have to go talk about SmackDown Live.
Well, we opened up SmackDown Live again this week with Miz TV, and he is looking fantastic. You can tell he's a proud new dad. He's got a hot new TV show on the way. He's married to Maurice, so, I mean, what guy wouldn't be excited and happy about that? You know, there's a lot of things to like about what The Miz continues to do in WWE, and this week he calls out, as his special guests, the newly reformed Team Hell No.
Oh, God.
And this was so money. This segment, I really, really enjoyed this.
I have to say, I'm of two minds, because as much as this entire episode of SmackDown Live, Team Hell No was entertaining me to the moon and back. And we have a whole bunch to talk about, because a lot of stuff, they did a great job of interweaving a bunch of different feuds.
Yeah.
They're so entertaining, but I don't know if I'm any more excited about their match on Sunday with the Bludgeon Brothers. I'm happy to see them, and they're entertaining me, but I'm not like, God, I can't wait to see that match. I just want them to come out and be funny all the time, like this segment with
Miz.
the
old backstage segments they did all the time.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
It's not a team that you sit there and go, I can't wait to watch them wrestle. It's just you can't wait for another segment that they're in. And they had a few segments,
this
three
week.
different segments on this very show, on this show alone. The Miz TV one, they had one in the middle of the whole show with the New Day, where Kane quoted NSYNC and defined it as a gateway to hell, not a portal.
JT's too big to reunite the band.
And then at the end of the show, there was a little bit after this final match on the show, which we'll talk about in a second here, where Daniel Bryan keeps trying to set off Kane's pyro, and he can't do it until he does, and Kane goes, "What the hell, man?" It was a ton of fun, and I gotta say, I love, as much as they even called out a couple times on the show that it's a nostalgia act.
Yeah,
they know it's a nostalgia act, and it's kind of a self-aware meta nostalgia act at this point, where there's a lot of self-referential stuff going on. Even between Miz and them, it's fun.
He quote played the wrong clip, showing just what a dick that Kane was to Daniel Bryan.
Yeah, trying to steal his wife and tombstoning him on the stairs and stuff. Yeah, this is the thing. But still, it's just so much fun. The two of them are so much fun together. Such great chemistry. And it speaks to Miz as a performer as well, that someone like Daniel Bryan can come out and tell him to his face, Miz, everything you do is awful. And have the entire audience cheer and jeer at the Miz. But then we're still sitting here at home going, I mean, yeah, but he's really great.
Yeah, but he's really good at being that bad.
He's really good at being that awful.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the point of this segment, was Miz trying to instigate Team Hell No into fighting amongst themselves. But then the whole thing breaking down when Sanity and the Bludgeon Brothers and the New Day all crashed the set, and there was this massive kerfuffle. And it was a ton of fun and chaos, as Sanity would say. And it ended up getting turned into a 10-man tag team match.
Wow. That's what the other segment was. It was backstage with the New Day with Team Hell No.
That's what I was talking about. Yeah, when Kane starts quoting NSYNC for something. That was like a running joke on the show.
That was in the thing with The Miz.
He mentioned
he did it both.
He did it on both times.
Oh God!
It was a running NSYNC joke with the Kane, which I don't know.
We don't need to rehash that.
That tickled me. But
anyway, I think we've called this out before. This is kind of, like you said, a nostalgia act, but it's also a sort of last ride for this legend, this guy. Yeah. It's probably he's going to go out. He's going to go be mayor. And I was down on this initially here on the show when they were first reforming a couple weeks ago, and I've come around. It's fun. It is what it is.
You can't be mad at it.
Yeah,
you just
so
can't.
much fun.
But the Teddy Long special, the 10-man tag match at the end of the show, that was even nice, fun chaos with Daniel Bryan picking up a win over what's his name from Sanity?
God, not Killian Dane, not Eric Young, the other one.
Yeah, Eric Young.
Eric Young.
Okay, Eric Young. Right. Yeah, thank you. I had a complete brain fart there. Geez. I was just watching some old Eric Young TNA matches too. But so nice win for Daniel Bryan and Kane. They get to go off looking great to this pay-per-view, which I think is indicative of something. And I think that maybe the last time we see Kane on TV for a while. He may show up next week, but then after that, the mayoral race happens the very first week of August, I believe. So yeah, probably going to say bye-bye to the big red machine for now.
It was so I think we might not see him again, because I think that thing that they did at the end of the show with Daniel Bryan doing his pyro, the fact that they've not done his pyro for years now.
Yep.
I think that was kind of a
absolutely.
Salute.
That's exactly how I took it. Was we actually saw frickin' Kane's pyro.
Like it wasn't
even a big pyro. It was two little hot pots. It wasn't like the big stuff that they sometimes use. But no, this was I thought this was a fun way. As much as we bitch about tag matches sometimes, this all really worked well to show off these two matches that they're building with this. And that's the tag team matches between Bludgeon Brothers and Team Hell No. And then the pre-show match, the tables match between Sanity and the New Day, which I highly suspect to steal the show a la New Day and Usos from last year.
Yeah. Well, hey, next up we had I got to say something.
Uh-oh.
Do you remember a mere 3 months ago
I know
when AJ Styles and Nakamura were set up for the dream match, before all of the dick punching, before all of this stuff, we were going to have two of the most elite superstars of New Japan Pro Wrestling of all time, of just all wrestling ever, getting in the ring together, and it's the dream match.
Remember last year at Money in the Bank, I believe, when they had the ladder and they moved the ladder aside and just stared at each other?
Yes.
And everyone in the audience freaked out.
And we all,
oh, they could fight. They might be able to fight. Well, here we are again, and now AJ Nakamura is just kind of a throwaway match on SmackDown.
For Rusev.
Right. It was a way to build heat for AJ's match with Rusev. Ouch. Ouch.
I don't know, A, who booked this. You're fired. B, I want to see AJ and Rusev, but I don't want to diminish everything that we got out of AJ and Nakamura, and frankly, I don't think it should be done yet.
I don't even know.
I don't know that it is done. I don't feel like there was closure. I don't feel like there was a blow-off. We've just moved on.
Yeah, because it was really kind of an underwhelming feud overall, compared to the expectations, and the fact that it became all about, crotch shots, I think didn't help with that. But so we had an AJ versus Nakamura match for some reason that was booked, but that turned into AJ versus Nakamura and Rusev, with Jeff Hardy coming out because he's got a match against Nakamura for the U.S. title.
So great, we throw another tag match together.
Well, yeah, and I'm not necessarily mad at the theory behind having one match turn into a tag match just to keep things interesting and unexpected. That's fine, especially when you're promoting two big matches as they were here. It's just the history with Nakamura that just kind of, and again, it's logical. Nakamura is facing Jeff Hardy. You have Jeff Hardy come out, team with AJ. It makes sense. I get it. But just the history with AJ and Nakamura is so recent that it didn't. The energy was weird.
Yeah, it's kind of like, I don't know. It is weird. That's the best way to put it. Again, I don't feel like I have closure. I want closure. I'm invested. We spent a year getting from that moment you mentioned in Money in the Bank last year all the way up to WrestleMania and the Dream Match and yada yada, and it never manifested itself. We never got to see two of arguably the best technical wrestlers with extended history get at each other in the way that we expected them to. It turned into comedy BS antics. It turned into the Benny Hill show.
Well, and Aiden English getting involved and causing a disqualification at the end, Rusev, whatever. So it didn't even end up being a match at the end of the whole thing. So again, this was fine. I'm still kind of excited for AJ and Rusev, even though I feel it's a transitional feud for AJ, and it's another misuse of Rusev where they just won't. And I think it's too late, frankly, but they won't turn him face for the Rusev Day chance. And he's in this weird tweener spot where he gets cheered.
Diminished now.
They've diminished so much. I mean, it's like
they've
Matt
made
Hardy.
him stop doing. Now Aiden just does the Rusev Day when he was timing it to get the entire crowd to explode. Rusev Day. They made him stop doing that.
You might still see it on Sunday, but again, the fact that Rusev's coming in as the heel, it's just it cuts the legs out from underneath any kind of push that he could have with that momentum, that crowd energy, and it reminds me a lot of what just recently happened with Matt Hardy and the Delete Chance, where when him and Jeff came back last year at WrestleMania, and it was enormous. I mean, we talk about this a lot, was how over they were and how over the Delete Chant and the Broken Hardy world was, and just where it's at now. And it feels very similar to that, where you could argue that the Rusev Day thing was kind of a meme, but at the same day, it was indicative of something larger, that people really saw something in Rusev and connected to something in Rusev that they wanted to get behind. And the fact that it's fading off isn't just because the meme is getting old. It's because people are like, I really just can't. They won't let me get behind Rusev. And as much as it's great that he's in the title shot, like it's his first title shot in 4 years, at the same time, it's gonna end. He's gonna go back down to the mid card.
Yeah. Well, hey, speaking of mid card, James Ellsworth had his Battle of the Sexes 2.
Battle of the Sexes 2, the lumberjack version.
In the lumberjill match tonight, and I was really let down by this.
It was not executed well.
It devolved into just a melee of all of the different women outside, and that became the point of, or the focus, I should say, of what was going on. And it wasn't about Ellsworth and Asuka, and it wasn't about Carmella and Asuka. And it was more about who was fighting. I was watching for the mini stories of who was getting
who's fighting who
outside,
who's fighting who poorly outside, and. Yeah, that completely undoes the idea of a lumberjack match when the lumberjacks all break down, which, happened before. This was really awkward. They literally started fighting for no reason. Nothing set them off. There was no psychology behind getting them to fight each other. They just, I don't like you. So, man, everyone's going to start fighting at the same time. Nothing's going to trigger it. In addition, as you said, there wasn't really a whole lot here as far as Carmella was concerned. It wasn't like she was kind of masterminding where she threw some mace in for Ellsworth to use on Asuka, which he did great, I guess. And as a reason, they got Ellsworth put in a shark cage for their match this weekend, which, okay, great. But yeah, this was pretty underwhelming, and I am actually having trouble putting my finger on what exactly about it. Besides obviously the kind of confusion of the lumberjacks breaking down and the way that the whole Ellsworth Asuka thing played out, the timing just felt off. I can't put my finger on it, but it did not make me more excited for this match at all.
No, I was excited going into this. I like the idea of doing more mixed gender matches, and even if they're just comedy bits or setting up other things, I like that kind of stuff.
And I love the way that Ellsworth was setting it up too, where he was, acting like he was this macho dude, and it's Ellsworth.
Right. That's hilarious.
It's hilarious. Right. Natural comedy.
Put him in there with a known killer, in Asuka, and who had one of the greatest title reigns ever. And yes, you expect some things to happen, but yeah, I knew going in that there would be some antics here, and it would set up somewhere where Carmella would come in and just kick her in the face and 1-2 and whatever, and they run away. It's kind of their MO at this point.
Yeah, and I'm hoping against hope, even though my instincts tell me otherwise. I'm hoping that they pay this off this Sunday. I'm hoping that there's some payoff of this. This was another tease that we all want to see Asuka kick James Ellsworth's head off for real and really break Carmella's arm, or just really mess her up. We all want to see that. And that's part of the basics of building a good wrestling program.
Right.
Is just make it so you want to see that heel get their comeuppance so badly that when they do, you pop, right?
Yep.
I'm hoping that's what they do here, and it's not going to be a finish where we take the heat from this and try to keep it on Carmella by letting her go over Asuka, and then all of a sudden we really hate Carmella going into whoever her opponent is at SummerSlam, whether that's Charlotte or Becky or whatever. I'm really hoping for the former, because I don't know if they can keep this up before this becomes X-Pac heat on Carmella, which it's starting to turn towards already.
Yep. Last up, we've got Sin Cara had a match with Andrade Cien Almas. We've been waiting for this for quite some time. Wasn't really sure if it was some sort of injury to Sin Cara.
It was a legit injury to Sin Cara that pushed this off, which is too bad, because as we saw with this match, it was worth the wait. They only had about 5 or 7 minutes to do this match, but my God, they did a good job with the time they had.
Yeah.
Holy, this might be the best Sin Cara's looked since NXT.
So we've talked about the iterations of Sin Cara over the years.
This new version.
This is a new one.
This is the new Sin Cara. Yeah. But this has been a long time since I've seen him look this good, and maybe it was just Andrade bringing him up. But I think there's a lot of moves that Sin Cara was doing that was all him, and he looked great. It was just a very exciting, well-told match of Andrade beating him down and finally taking him out and looking dominant.
Does this go anywhere from here?
I don't think so. I think that was it. I think they're ready as soon as Extreme Rules is over to put Andrade somewhere, and I'm looking forward to wherever he goes. And I'm hoping it's somewhere big, because that boy is going to go a long way.
Well, before we get out of here on SmackDown Live, we did have one segment before the show where Samoa Joe attacks Ty Dillinger. What are your thoughts on this? Are we going to have a feud with Ty Dillinger and Samoa Joe?
No, this was only available on WWE.com, or if you were obviously in the arena. But I think this was telling us that they know, we're like, no, Samoa Joe's still here. He's still a killer. Another one like Andrade Cien Almas, they're waiting to just, drop the other shoe on. It's so people that are wondering, where's Joe? He's still there. They just don't have a program for him because, we have co-branded pay-per-views now. There's only so much room.
Well, hey, there's SmackDown Live, guys. Ian, let's jump right in and do our pick'ems for Extreme Rules. We did get the announcement that there is going to be a pre-show of New Day facing off against Sanity in a tables match.
Yep. As much as sometimes we like to say that pre-shows that's just the nature of a pre-show match. This is like a main card match. Yes. We're getting on the pre-show.
Remember last year we had New Day and Usos like opening, doing pre-show matches, and they would steal the show.
And that was what they said at the time was, you can put us on the pre-show all you want. This is when the show starts, is when we go out for our matches.
You said Corbin and Finn might be your sleeper match. This is mine.
Oh no, I don't think this is a sleeper match. I think if you watched any of the New Day and Usos last year, they're fully capable of stealing the show.
Yeah. So I'm what I meant by sleeper is like it could steal the show. It could end up being the match of the show.
Oh, I think it absolutely has a chance of being one of the matches of the show, if not the. Yeah. But who do you have this one? Who's going over, New Day or Sanity?
I think Sanity needs the win to kind of cement them, so I'm going to go with Sanity. I think New Day is going to be fine regardless. And if we get a feud out of it, great. I don't predict a program, but Sanity gets this win to kind of have their sort of signature win and cement them as a stable on SmackDown Live.
I agree. I think Sanity's taking this one as well. I think they definitely need the momentum. That's the third time on the show I've used that word.
God.
Damn you, Michael Cole.
I'm going to have to start bringing scotch and doing shots.
Oh, that might encourage me to do it, sir. Yeah. No, I think Sanity's taking this as well. I think if we do go towards a program a la the Usos and New Day last year, this is a good start for it. It started do the same thing you did last year. It worked last time. I don't see any reason why it wouldn't work again with different team opposite New Day. Sometimes it's, if it ain't broke, don't try to fix it. So yeah, I think Sanity's taking this one. We're going to head into a nice long program. New Day can take the next one if they want.
Nice. Next up in the main show card, Finn Balor faces off against Baron Corbin. Who do you got here?
Finn Balor.
Finn Balor.
Yep,
all right.
they've been building this up too long as the David versus Goliath story. I don't see a long-term feud going on here, really. I think this is going to be a quick one and done.
Yeah.
Obviously, if Corbin does pull this out, there's more to it. We'll probably go ahead with it to SummerSlam. But given how packed these cards are these days, I don't see this going much further.
No.
So I think Finn's going to take it here and put this guy behind him.
I agree, but I disagree. I think Baron Corbin is going to sneak in an end of days and absolutely put him down. I think it's going to be Finn on just crazy Tasmanian devil offense like you normally see him, but Baron Corbin's going to sneak one in at the end of it, do something dirty, whatever. Baron Corbin's your winner of the match, even though Finn looks good.
Basically, what you're saying is it's going to be every Finn Balor match for the last 2 months.
Yes.
Again.
Because they've been telegraphing it to us this whole time.
Gotcha.
Next up, Braun Strowman and Kevin Owens in a steel cage match. Who do you got here?
I am going to go for the wild card. The Vegas odds say otherwise, but I'm going to say Kevin Owens is taking this one. I think that one of the upsides to it being a cage match, even though supposedly you can't, quote, get away, one of the points of the match is to get away, is to try and escape the cage. And it's one way that he could beat Braun Strowman and not look weak is to escape out of the cage. And if they want to keep this going, that's a way to do it, is have Kevin Owens pull out this one and really piss the monster off.
Do you want to put a 0.5 prop bet on the fact that he wins by escaping the cage?
Sure, if you'd like.
Sure, because I'm going to pick Braun Strowman to win this because I don't see, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. He is your Money in the Bank holder. He needs He doesn't need the victory, but you can't have your Money in the Bank holder lose unless they're in sort of a heel position. Anyway, Braun Strowman's going to win this. I don't think Kevin Owens escapes the cage. So
you're saying +5 for a pinfall in the cage, pinfall or submission in the cage.
Sure.
All right, plus 0.5 to you. Far be it from you to pick against your boy.
I can't pick against Braun Strowman. No. Next up, we have the Deleters of Worlds. I guess Bray Wyatt will be back by Sunday. He's done his reckless endangerment stuff. Bray Wyatt and Matt Hardy facing off against the B team of Curtis Axel and Bo Dallas. Who do you got, sir?
This is an easy one for me. Deleters of Worlds. They've been being beaten by the B team consistently for so long. I think that it's pretty clear that they're going to have a bit more of a reign. They got more to do with them, and this has just been a way to just keep things circling. I think the Leaders of Worlds will retain and hand the B team their first loss.
Ooh. See, I have some interesting, weird fantasy speculation about where this is going to go, and I need to preface this a little bit by exemplifying just how dead the effing tag division is on Monday Night Raw. So I wouldn't
kidding.
put it past them putting these belts on the B team, I believe, to split up Matt Hardy and Bray Wyatt at some point in the near future, because I don't think this is going to last forever. I think it's going to be a transitional title reign in order to somehow reboot the Monday Night Raw tag division. So maybe it's AOP that comes and destroys them after Extreme Rules. I think B Team is going to pull out a little sneaky win here.
Yes, as you said earlier in the
titles.
show, you've been telling us that for the longest time, that
Yes.
B Team is going somewhere.
Yes, they are.
For a year, I believe you said,
Yes.
between with the Miz Taraj.
I'm telling you guys about this Bo Dallas guy and Curtis Axel for a long time.
All right, well, we
Yep.
will have to see come Sunday. But in the meantime, who do you have between the Bludgeon Brothers versus Team Hell No for the SmackDown Live Tag Champions?
See, this is probably the hardest one for me to book or to pick, because I'm sitting here going, can the Bludgeon Brothers lose? They really haven't done anything other than show up in costumes and beat the hell out of people. I don't know that anybody's really invested in them other than Vince. But at the same time, you're not going to put tag title belts on somebody that's walking out the door. So it's got to stay on the Bludgeon Brothers.
Agreed. I think it's the easiest.
As cool as it would be to see Daniel Bryan and Kane with the tag titles again.
Yeah.
It's just not going to happen.
The only way it will happen is if they drop it the next SmackDown
Sure.
back to the Bludgeon Brothers. Like they get one more title reign in, and then boom, we're done. Or they split up and Kane turns on him one last time on his way out.
As much time as they've been getting on TV, I'll take a flyer and I'll go against you and I'll put Team Hell No.
Okay, yeah,
Just because.
here's the thing. I think it's fairly clear that Bludgeon Brothers will win here and Kane will eat the pin on his way out to becoming mayor. But at the same time, there is the outside chance they could still pull it off with Team Hell No picking up the victory if Kane eats the pin and gives up the tag championships next SmackDown. They could absolutely do that and get away with it in storyline and outside of storyline.
Yeah.
So we will see. Although I believe at this point, Bludgeon Brothers are undefeated as a team, so that would be a pretty big deal to hand them their first loss. But we will see come Sunday.
Yep.
Next up, we've got Jeff Hardy versus Shinsuke Nakamura for the U.S. title. Who do you have here?
I think I've been speculating for quite some time that, and both of us have, that Knock needs a title, needs a reign, needs a signature win of that sort, and I think this is going to be it for him. I think this is going to be the first title reign for Shinsuke Nakamura, and I actually kind of like this, that it's not the WWE Championship as we thought it would be several times in the recent memory. So I'm picking Nakamura here because I think this is going to be his first big run, and there's no reason for it not to. Jeff Hardy will be fine. I love that he's in the makeup. Maybe it sends him back down deeper into that hole of where he finds it, and he comes back just with this renewed vigor. But if you've been watching Jeff Hardy's matches lately, it's a lot of spot fests. He's not really doing anything creative. If
you've been watching Jeff Hardy's matches for the last 25 years, they're all spot fests.
It's a whisper in the wind,
man.
trying to do swinging neck breakers, finally landing a swanton bomb, and
But he's telling a good story with it. He had a good match with Miz last week. I thought it told a good story. And his work this week was also pretty good. As much as he had spots, he still can tell a good story while he's doing it.
Sure.
That being said, I'd have to agree with you. Nakamura is taking this one here. It's been too many times where he's almost gotten a title. If he loses this one as well, it's really going to take some money out of his stocks. And especially because Jeff Hardy, as you said, can't afford to lose. He's looked really strong for the last couple of weeks. It's not, at this point, it's not going to hurt him too much to have Nakamura go over him, especially if it's in some sort of skullduggerous way.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I definitely think Nakamura not only could, but should take it this Sunday.
Prop bet on whether or not Nakamura dick punches Jeff Hardy.
I refuse to engage in that kind of speculation.
All right,
sir.
moving on. Next up, we've got Roman Reigns facing off against Bobby Lashley. Who do you got here?
Roman Reigns.
Roman Reigns? All right.
Yep. I'm so bored with Roman Reigns.
There's no way Bobby Lashley's winning this.
No, it's not, man. Come on.
Roman Reigns.
This was originally supposed to be a number one contendership match. I'm not sure why it's not still, because now there's just really no point to it. There's no stakes other than bragging rights or whatever they've made up for this. Here's the bonus point for this one. This is going to be a full point, not a point, not a 0.5. This is a full bonus point.
Okay.
Will this be the main event of the show? Will this be the final match of the show? A match that does not involve a title, a match that does not have any stakes whatsoever other than personal pride as they've built this. Will this be the final match of the show solely because it is Roman Reigns?
Yes.
Wow.
No, not solely because it's Roman Reigns, solely because I've been watching the advertising for all of the programming this week. And if you any Extreme Rules thing, all they do is talk about Roman Reigns and Bobby Lashley. They are setting it up to be the closer.
And
main
they don't
event.
even have an Extreme Rules match.
Like
there's nothing extreme about this match.
Those adverts aside, I would have easily said AJ Styles and Rusev for the WWE Championship will be the main event closing the show. But that said, they've barely mentioned that in any of the advertising.
Yeah.
Which kind of tells you what they think about Rusev.
Well, and that's kind of my point is based on Roman Reigns or Bobby Lashley and how they're positioning them in the company versus how they're positioning AJ Styles and Rusev. Who do you put on last if you're someone in the WWE?
Right.
I think it's a no-brainer, and it's sad that that's the case. Moving on, Carmella versus Asuka for the SmackDown Live Women's Championship with James Ellsworth hung above the ring in a shark cage.
I think I've said this before, and you've doubted it because you don't know how to get it off of her or once you put it on her. I think there's a good chance Asuka takes it here, and I think the dynamic of having Ellsworth up in the cage, not in her corner, and not able to interfere in any way, this has to be a clean match, or if it's going to be champion's advantage because it's just a straight up match, right? There's no extreme parts of this, right? Is that fair?
I'll let you finish.
Okay. So from my point of view, I'm going, at some point they've got to let Asuka win something. Because, I mean, damn, since WrestleMania, she hasn't won a damn thing that I can remember other than tapping out James Ellsworth. I mean, like, congratulations. So at the end of the day, I'm going, when are they going to give her this? But at the same time, I agree with you. That's like, how do they get it off of her? How do they move forward? I want to see Asuka win. I'm taking a flyer here. I want Asuka to have this championship. And I think it would be better matches, better for the show to have her going up against Charlotte, Becky, whoever it's going to be later in the year, than Carmella.
Sadly, I agree with you on all that, except for the fact that Asuka's not going to win. It's going to be Carmella. I don't know if you've ever seen a shark cage match before, but they always get out somehow. Somehow there's always something.
Enzo had oil or something. He was oiling
there's
himself
always some way that they get out, and get free and get down somehow. So I see.
Did Jericho get out when he was in the not the festival?
I can't remember off the top of my head right now. I'm too busy thinking about Ellsworth covered in oil sneaking through the bars of a cage. But somehow
he does have an advantage of not having a chin, and it allows him to get through the bars easier.
God, watch that become a thing. That's going to be
man.
Careful. No, I think that there's definitely going to be some skullduggery here, some sort of kerfuffle, some sort of nonsense, and Carmella will once again screw over Asuka and retain the title. And it's not going to be something that, in theory, in their minds, will not hurt Asuka because it is a muddled finish. Yeah. It's not a clean finish. And so it won't, quote, hurt her as much. But I think Carmella retains all the way to SummerSlam. And whoever, if it's Asuka still, or I think if it's Becky or Charlotte, will finally beat her.
That's where she's going to drop it. I kind of agree with you there. I'm half considering changing my pick on this one.
Faces don't usually win at SummerSlam, but that could be one I could see happening.
Yeah. Well, hey, next up, we got a couple more. Nia Jax facing off against Alexa Bliss for yet another iteration of the Raw Women's Championship. Who you got here?
Bliss all the way.
Yep, same.
There
needs no real discussion.
No, that's Ronda will get involved somehow and screw it up or something. Bliss is definitely retaining. There's no way Nia gets it back because there's no story between her and Ronda Rousey. I think this is, and they are so high on Alexa Bliss that it beggars belief. We just saw an advertisement for Table for Three today where it was Trish Stratus, Lita, and Alexa Bliss. And if that doesn't tip the scale as to where they're at with what they think of Alexa Bliss, I don't know what does. So
I could see this match ending in DQ where Nia takes the win, but
doesn't get the championship.
Alexa Bliss retains.
Absolutely,
yeah. I think this match is one of those that's. It's not about who's winning. Alexa Bliss is going to retain regardless.
Yeah, let's clarify that we're not calling necessarily Bliss to win per se. Yeah. She is retaining the belt.
Yeah, exactly.
She's retaining the belt. That's what we were saying on both of those. Next up, this is a big old card because we got 4 hours to cover on every pay-per-view now. Dolph Ziggler versus Seth Rollins for the Intercontinental Championship in a quote-unquote Iron Man match that only goes 30 minutes, which I have a hard time calling an Iron Man. That's more like a Copper Man match.
Yep. It's like a bronze match.
Yeah, really.
Settle down over there, New Japan. So all their matches are like 30 plus minutes, right?
I'm just thinking about Brett and Shawn and other Iron Man matches I've seen that are real Iron Man
Settle
matches.
down a little bit more.
Come on. Kurt Angle and Brock Lesnar. Come on.
Yeah. I hear you on that one. I don't know on this one. I want to say Seth picks up the victory, which leads into a feud with Drew McIntyre. That's what my gut's telling me, and I'm going to go with it. I think Seth wins here, somehow overcomes the fact that McIntyre is at the side. Maybe that's the thing that embroils the feud going forward, but ultimately ends up screwing over Ziggler at the same time, so it breaks them up. We lead into a program with Seth Rollins and Drew McIntyre. Am I fantasy dreaming and living in fantasy world right now? Absolutely, because that's what I want to see. Do I think that's going to happen eventually? I don't know. I'm calling Seth Rollins to pick up his Intercontinental title again here.
Well, partially to be contrary and partially because I'm taking the safe bet, I'm going to say Dolph is going to retain here. I think that they may have been a little too obvious with Drew winning on Monday, and I think that might mean that Seth does win.
Yeah.
So the unsafe part of me says that they've been hiding how healthy Ambrose is, and Ambrose runs in to take out Drew McIntyre. Yeah, and I may be regretting this come next week when that happens and I go ahead and pick Dolph, but I am sticking with my Dolph pick because I think it's too early still for Dean. I think that his earliest projected was like August. Yeah. So if he comes back in, I think it might be a little bit premature. Not that it's never happened before, but I think it's a long shot, and the safer bet is Dolph retains and Seth continues to chase all the way to SummerSlam.
I like the dynamic between our picks before we get to the last one here, because it's my fantasy of what I want to see, sometimes mixed with what I think will happen, and you are kind of more of like realistic about it and like what you will happen rather than getting wrapped up in like what you would like to see.
Yes.
I think there's a fun dynamic in that.
That is why you fail.
Yeah, maybe.
Moving on.
Unless I did whip all that ass.
Unless it's WrestleMania. Yes.
When it counts, guys.
Keep on sleeping in that bed.
Yes.
Moving on to what should be the main event, AJ Styles versus Rusev for the WWE Championship. On 3, Nick, shall we? 1, 2, 3.
AJ
Styles. Yep. That's a kind of a no-brainer. I cannot see Rusev in any way picking this up here. But
I said that last year when Jinder Mahal got it.
Oh, so God, please prove us wrong here then. I would love it if they proved us wrong.
I will gladly be handed this loss for this entire card if you put the WWE Championship on Rusev.
We'll both lose on this one because we both pick Styles. If Rusev picks this up, we're both losing the point, and
we're going to know by the middle of the show because they're going to put it bury it in the middle somewhere.
I think it might open the show.
That's a good point. I've done that before, too.
The WWE Championship might open the show, and a nothing match for no real reason between Bobby Lashley and Roman Reigns will close the show.
Oh, boy.
Dear God. Well, that is our pick'ems for this weekend's Extreme Rules pay-per-view from WWE. Come back and check us out. We will have our recap and analysis of that show on this coming Monday. But stick around because we have a ton more to talk about because we have to go and talk about the wide world of wrestling.
Well, our first stop in the wide world of wrestling, as it always is sticking with the WWE and NXT at Full Sail. Starting the show off with Adam Cole facing off against Danny Burch. After last week, they got in a little tussle backstage and little mouthy with each other, and it was like, all right, well, we'll have a match next week.
Yep, Adam Cole picks up the win in a pretty hard-hitting match. Decent match, nothing to write home about, but it was a good signature win for Cole. I think he's going to need this going into Brooklyn, where I believe he will probably lose his title to Ricochet.
I agree.
So I think that this is a good way of making him look strong in advance of that.
You haven't watched ahead and are spoiling anything, are you?
No.
Okay, good. All right, because I have not, I think that too. I think Ricochet's in line for that.
Fantasy booking, but it's also fantasy booking, as you said before, with a lot of pragmatism thrown in, and that seems to be where they're going. Yeah. So we'll see.
Next up, we had a little bit of a scrap out back in the parking lot by the TV trucks with Shayna Baszler and Candice LeRae. Shayna was just hanging out,
minding her own business, and that hussy Candice came up and just started stuff with her.
Hey, bitch!
She's taking cues from her evil boyfriend,
right,
Johnny Gargano, who has turned to the dark side. I can't believe this.
Oh boy!
But no, all fooling aside, this was a fun little scrap. We did get announced that next week there will be a fatal 4-way match for the number 1 contendership between Bianca Belair, Kairi Sane, Nikki Cross, and Candice LeRae. And if you don't think this little bit right here was telling us who's going to win that fatal 4-way, I don't know what to tell you. So yeah,
it's a shame with the talent that's in that foursome that's the one that they're going to pick to telegraph to us. Which I think kind of the opposite. It might be somebody else.
Well, given some of the rumors we're hearing that Nikki might be getting called up soon, I have a feeling that Candace will pin Nikki next week. So
Nikki's been doing house show. I mean, and even Shayna has been rumored to be showing up on Raw stuff. So we don't know. There's so much talent right now. We're getting ready to go into the Mae Young Classic 2.0. The women's division is especially exciting right now, both on the main show and in NXT.
Here's a speculative idea.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is going to take a second, but Candice LeRae wins number one contendership, faces Shayna Baszler at Brooklyn. Meanwhile, Ciampa beats Aleister Black in 2 weeks to pick up the NXT Championship, faces Johnny Gargano at Brooklyn. Both Johnny Gargano and Candice LeRae pick up the two belts, men and women's, the same night in a great redemptive angle. The next night, Shayna Baszler shows up on SummerSlam and costs Ronda Rousey her match against Alexa Bliss.
Wow.
Moving on, we also had Lacey. You like that?
I just all over myself.
Yep. Lacey Evans faced off with Dakota Kai. Looks like we're having a match between those two next week.
Nice.
And I'm looking forward to that. Dakota having her long trip back to the main event. She has some business to contend with Shayna Baszler, apparently. Kairi Sane had a match against Vanessa Bourne, who I have been very down on. She looked better here, but still not 100% great.
Yeah.
But Kairi did pick up the win here, looked really good and strong doing it.
We almost had a second Japanese person with a broken neck this week after that rope spot that she did.
Damn, that's cold.
Kind of threw
that's
her over.
cold.
I was like, oh... I think we both cringed a little bit.
Yeah, but if you're wondering why Kairi and Bianca have been winning their matches lately, it's because they ain't going to win the number one contendership match next week. Just saying. As we mentioned earlier, Johnny Gargano is skulking around, being very vicious looking, and he had some strong words from Aleister Black about how Aleister could not lose the NXT Championship to Ciampa. And Aleister telling him to mind his own business before going into the backstage area and getting DDT'd onto the concrete by that bald bastard.
That son of a bitch.
Tommaso Ciampa out of nowhere, taking out Aleister Black in advance of their match in 2 weeks for the championship. That was a great little segment. Aleister had some great expressions and reactions to Johnny Gargano, who I gotta say, I love the new character change with Johnny, where he's almost like scarily psychotic.
And strung out.
Yeah, like strung out.
Yeah.
That's a really good way of putting it. Yeah, like that. He's like Ciampa has messed him up. He's
been at home doing PCP too much and just is running around just.
He's up.
Ciampa!
He's up all through the night, high on meth, searching for like videos and pictures of Ciampa online, and then like deconstructing them in Photoshop and like posting them on his wall and throwing darts at them. And yeah, I could go on, but I will not, because we have to talk about the main event of the evening, and that was the tag match for the NXT Tag Championships. Undisputed Era versus Mustache Mountain. I'm still exhausted from watching this match.
There were points in this match where it was uncomfortable. The crowd at Full Sail would not stop counter chanting Undisputed versus Mustache Mountain.
That crowd
they went on for 20 minutes.
They were indefatigable. I mean, they just would not. Yes, that's right. They were tireless.
Okay, yeah.
They could not stop chanting, and it just made the match that much more intense, as most of the match was pretty much Trent Seven getting his leg torn off by both members of Undisputed Era and trying to tag in Tyler Bate, and then the whole drama of Tyler not wanting to tag out because his mentor, Trent Seven, was too injured to come back in, but then had to come back in because Tyler got too beat up by trying to go 1-on-2 against the Undisputed Era. Brilliantly booked, brilliantly written match.
And then the whole drama of whether or not
he should throw in the towel.
And he doesn't want to lose the championships, but he doesn't want to see his friend lose his career over the leg. And the commentary was brilliant.
They were so fired up, frothing. I'm sure those mics were dripping wet afterwards. And of course, you know, he's sitting here with the towel and Trent screaming, "No, don't throw it in." And he refuses to tap out. High drama, brilliantly executed. Of course, Tyler Bate at the end forced to throw in the towel to save Trent Seven's leg, and the Undisputed Era takes back the NXT Tag Championship.
We had a Bobby Fish appearance with his, I don't know if it was a spelling bee trophy or something that he
Participation trophy.
Yeah, at the top of the ramp as everybody was celebrating. There were sobs and tears from Trent Seven in the ring. Are they going back to the UK now? Are we done with these guys? Is there more here? I don't really know.
Well, So we haven't gotten to listener questions yet, but Shane Levesque asked us if we were surprised by the outcome of the tag match, the NXT tag match.
Absolutely surprised.
I was not, and I was actually surprised when they first gave them the belts. In hindsight, it made sense because they had to make that NXT event in the UK a big deal, and it was the only belts they could possibly get away with transitioning off of somebody. But I knew they had to get it back on Undisputed Era by the time that SummerSlam in Brooklyn rolled around. So I had a feeling that they were nothing but transitional champs. The fact that they gave them 2 fantastic matches in the interim was, I think, a way of establishing that they were, at least somewhat legitimate tag champs, and then this really epic send-off for their reign, I think was a way to do that. I ultimately think we will see NXT UK tag belts on their own. I don't think it'll transfer back and forth between brands, really. This was just a way of putting over the UK brand temporarily, but ultimately, Undisputed Era needs to have a whole ton of gold to look legitimate. So I was not surprised by this.
Yeah. No, I was surprised by how I should clarify. I was surprised how it played out. I wasn't so I was surprised that they won him in the first place, but I agree with you that they had to have one belt change hands at the Royal Albert Hall event a week or 2 ago. Yep. So did I expect them to lose it a week later or 2 weeks later? No. But I expected them to hold on to it for another week or 2.
I actually thought they were going to lose it the next night. Like the next NXT, they were going to lose it. So when it took this long, I was surprised they had Tyler throw in the towel, but I did like the fact that it established that, the honor among friends and the love that they had for each other was meant more than the gold, if you will.
Father figure, he's his mentor. Yeah. He taught him everything he knows about the business.
There's a lot of great storyline that can come out of that. I'm not mad at that at all. I think there's way worse ways they could have ended this match. I thought it was a really good way to end it.
Who are the next opponents for Undisputed Era at this point? Have we established that? Do we look forward to TakeOver Brooklyn?
I wonder. I think there's a lot of tag teams. That's a great thing about NXTs. They've got a lot of tag teams circling right now. Wall Wadas, I think, have been saying that they're looking at it. They're hungry for it, and
I'm thinking the Mighty.
Their face right now, the Mighty are heel, so I don't see the heels going against the heels. Because right now, as it is with poor Danny Burch and Oney Lorcan, it was almost impossible for them to get cheered at the last takeover against Undisputed Era. So you have to have like some serious face guys going up against Undisputed Era at this point for them to get any kind of cheers and not get booed. And
that's going to be War Raiders.
I think they're the best option right now. At any rate, heading over to 205 Live, we had another opening with the Lucha House Party kicking off the show. This time it was a match between Kalisto and Tony Nese with Buddy Murphy at ringside. And basically this was a way of just building that Buddy Murphy's going to have some issues with the Lucha House Party going forward. We had a little scuffle at the end. Buddy Murphy tackling Grand Metalik and going to town on him. It was a nice tussle at the end of this match. And we're building towards a feud between Buddy Murphy, Tony Nese, and maybe a third person because Lucha House Party is 3 guys. So
Gulak.
Gulak's busy with Kendrick and Gallagher.
Oh, that's right.
I don't think it's going to be him. It's going to be somebody else. Maybe Itami, which we'll talk about in a second. Mm-hmm. We also saw that Noam Dar is back, and he and TJP are heading into a feud, talking some smack backstage. They get another match next week, which will hopefully go longer than 30 seconds.
Right.
But I look forward to the two of them working together. We had a quick match. Leo Rush squashed Kyle Delaney, a local competitor, but Akira Tozawa was ringside and gotten Leo's face afterwards, kind of like a inversion of last week where Leo was making fun of Tozawa during his match. We had a match get put together for next week between Leo Rush and Akira Tozawa. And finally, we had Hideo Itami in the main event getting his title shot against Cedric Alexander. What did you think of this big match?
I'm going to be honest. After the absolute inundation of wrestling that I've experienced in the last 48 hours, I actually nodded off during this match, and I don't remember it. It's one of those that I need to go back and watch along with the G1 special and other things.
You know what's funny is I don't blame you for nodding off. It's not that it was a bad match. The crowd was completely dead. And it was a very methodical match. It was very much Hideo Itami doing a lot of strong strikes and then a lot of selling from Cedric. And I also thought it ended really, really quickly. I don't know if they just called for it to end or what it was, but Cedric hit basically one move and it was over after taking monstrous amounts of punishment. So I was surprised by that. I'm not going to lie, I was a little underwhelmed based on what I was going to expect. But at the same time, this was definitely a Itami wheelhouse kind of match where that's his jam, is beating dudes up. So from that perspective, I wasn't mad at it. Certainly, as far as 205 Live goes, it was a little bit underwhelming, especially after Buddy Murphy and Mustafa Ali last week burned the house down.
Yeah.
But a lot of people are really coming down on this match, and I think that they're spoiled if this match is considered bad, considering some of the stuff that was seen on other WWE TV this week. I thought it was a perfectly acceptable match. It was a nice way to have Cedric have a strong victory as champion again.
Notch on his belt that he wanted.
Another notch on his belt that he beat a Tommy. Yeah, no, totally fine. But again, I do understand why you fell asleep during it. Yeah. I'm not going to lie. At a couple points in the middle, I felt myself getting drowsy, and I had to think, like, why am I'm liking this match. I like what's happening. Why am I drowsy? Is it because there's just no heat from the audience for this whatsoever? There's no applause? Maybe. Don't know.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Well, hey, that's enough of the WWE. We've got a lot to talk about. You took a special trip this week to go see the New Japan G1 special. Tell us about your trip, man. What were some of the highlights?
I mean, the G1 special was, first of all, taking place in the historic Cow Palace in San Francisco, like one of the West Coast bastions of old school wrestling. And even new school. A lot of really historic moments have taken place there. Pat Patterson obviously was a big fixture there back in the day. But so aside from the historical nature of it, this was an awesome show. And they may have learned a lesson with Strong Style Evolved in Long Beach previously, which had sort of a mediocre card, but wasn't a bad show, just wasn't mind-blowing.
Did it have more than 5,000 seats?
Yes, this was a 10,000 seat arena. They only sold out about 6,300 of them, unfortunately. So pretty much the whole second deck was about half empty on the second deck. It was pretty sparse, you could tell.
That's a shame.
Yeah, it was kind of a bummer. One of our listeners that was actually there and met up with me, Ryan Rugani, came down to say hi, and It was very cool to meet him. And we were commenting about how good the show was, and it was a lot of fun. So it was really nice to meet him, and thanks to him for coming and saying hi and listening to the show. But as far as the show itself, top to bottom, it was fantastic. You had the typical tag matches to start off the show. All of which were fun. You know, you had Minoru Suzuki versus Ishii and Toru Yano with Zack Sabre Jr. The typical spots you expect from that.
Yep.
You had Kazuchika Okada and Will Ospreay. It was a bunch of great stuff. The real meat came, as it usually does, in the second half of the show. You had the Hiromu Takahashi and Dragon Lee match, which we spoke about earlier, which before the injury, by the way, was the roof came off the place. It was an absolutely insane match. Really incredible. You had, I thought a lot of people sounded underwhelmed by it. I liked it. The Jeff Cobb versus Hiroki Goto match, I thought was nice and hard hitting, some good strength spots. I liked that match. But a lot of people seemed down on it for some reason. Cobb was over as hell, getting some nice chants. The two big matches of the show, obviously, and these are the ones we're going to talk about the most, and that is Jay White versus Juice Robinson, and then the big match of the night, Cody versus the current IWGP Heavyweight Champion Kenny Omega for control of the Bullet Club. I want to talk about that one first, because if you didn't watch the show, you don't know what's going on. Cody and Kenny have been feuding for a long time over who's really in charge of the Bullet Club,
right?
And this finally put the kibosh on that, with Kenny Omega, of course, picking up the win after some absolutely insane spots. There was a superplex off the top of a ladder that was inside the ring. There was a spot to the outside where Cody pretty much mostly missed a table and took a nasty bump outside. It was a pretty damn good match. But at the end of the day, Kenny picks up a pretty decisive win, and Cody limps off. And after that, Bullet Club celebrating, Kenny telling everyone to love each other. They start heading towards the back, and the Tongans. You had Tama Tonga, Tonga Loa, their real-life dad, King Haku, the scariest man in the history of wrestling. Please don't kill me, Minoru Suzuki. But they all came out and wiped the floor with all of Bullet Club. Even Chase Owens and Yujiro came out to try and stop it. Took them all back
down to the ring.
They took them all out, and all of the Tongans were standing tall. They finally showed that they were splitting up from the Bullet Club. Even Cody, limping back out to the ring, is given a chair by the Tongans to finally put an end to Kenny, and he sides with Kenny and starts trying to take out the Tongans. He gets beaten down, and now they're actually, so post all this all happened, by the way, half the crowd had left, everyone was like, "Cool, the show's over."
This was the
Bullet
old
Club celebrating the ring.
copyright dodge.
What they do in NXT, exactly. They put that little thing on the corner. You're like, "Cool, the show's over. I can go to the bathroom and get my
I gotta take a whiz. Let's go."
Yep. Nope. Good thing you got swerved. I looked over from where I was sitting, and the main entrance of the Cow Palace. There's people lined up all through the ramp trying to look back and see what's going on in the arena. It looks like the Tongans have now formed a little stable of their own called the Firing Squad. Post all of this, it came out that Bad Luck Fale had actually joined with them as well. So
interesting.
Bullet Club is not fine. Kenny and Cody may have put their differences mostly behind them, but now we have a whole new big issue with the Tongans all rebelling, and all of them are OG. So it's going to be a pretty big deal.
The core Bullet Club is back, other than the Tongans are back together. So Cody, Hangman, the Young Bucks, and
but they're all later
Kenny.
era. They're all later era
Sure.
Bullet Club guys. So the Tongans are really the old school guys.
The last man standing, sort of. Yeah.
Fale was one of the original guys.
Right.
Tama Tonga was shortly thereafter. So yeah, it's a pretty nice twist on this story. But the match I really want to talk about as well is Jay White versus Juice Robinson, because dear God, this was definitely the most hyped the crowd was all night. Juice Robinson was over as hell. It was a massive night for him. He came out with doing the whole USA thing, Juice SA now as it's being called.
God. Okay.
And Jay White has gone from being kind of a sort of baby face to he's full heel now. He is as heel as hell. He broke, quote unquote, broke Jay White's hand before this match. So Jay White had to wrestle in a cast on his left hand, which he was not allowed to use because it's a weapon.
Right.
So this whole match was really well set up. A lot of the promos before it were fantastic. And the match itself was I went from being really down on Jay White. You've probably heard me crap on Jay White before. Turned around. He did some incredible heel work here, some really good wrestling. And in addition, I want to point out Jim Ross and Josh Barnett are the Access TV commentators.
Yes.
They were both ringside, and there were some monstrous barricade spots in this match where Jay White was putting Juice into the barricades harder than I think I've ever seen someone go into the barricades. People were going flying, barricades were going flying, and he put him into the barricade in front of the announce desk and sent Jim Ross flying. The barricade went into the table, sent Jim Ross backwards, which gets Josh Barnett up. And he jumps out after Jay White, says, now you done fucked up now, and starts chasing him around. The crowd was really hot. They were really angry at Jay White before. I have never seen a crowd that I can think of in the last 20 years get this ugly, this quick. People were ready to jump the barricade and murder Jay White for hurting JR. And we're cheering Josh Barnett. You thought Juice was way over after this as well. It was a fantastic moment. And I want to talk about it because I'm not sure if that was a work or a shoot. And based on what came out afterwards, where we're seeing stuff where Jim Ross is saying he legit broke a rib and he had to go to the doctor and he's been missing actual dates that he's supposed to perform. It might have actually been an actual mistake and an error. And Josh Barnett did a great job covering for it and letting Jim, recover, or he may have actually legit been mad. And I'm hoping I get to interview him in the next couple of days and find out for real. Fingers crossed if I run into him.
Okay.
But at the same time, that was a really interesting spot where it did a really good job hyping the match and making the match even more intense. And when Juice Robinson finally picked up the win at the end in a fantastic closing sequence, it made the roof came off the place and people were jumping up and down. The biggest pop of the night, hands down. It really did help the match. So I'm of two minds about it. I don't want to see Jim Ross get hurt.
Of course.
But at the same time, man, it really worked for the match.
Well, we've been high on Juice Robinson since the G1 last year, since the G1 Climax last year. Said he was one of the ones that probably had the best G1 of last year. So he's been riding this wave ever since then. Do you think he gets some big shine off of the G1 special going into the G1 Climax tournament?
He's now the U.S. champ. He's got his first belt in New Japan. Absolutely. This is a huge deal for him. And for him to win it in America, he's now the first American to hold the belt. Before it was a Canadian and then a New Zealander. So it's a big deal for him to get this. And you definitely felt it that night.
Yeah.
That it was a big deal that he won this.
Well, with the G1 Climax tournament does open and start this weekend. What do we have as far as thoughts? I think we've gone down over the brackets and everything a couple of weeks ago. What are some initial thoughts going into this now that you've seen the G1 special and the outcomes of that?
Well, the G1 Climax, I've got a nice big sheet here about who's facing who when, and it's a lot of fun. But it's going to be pretty insane. You have all your heavy hitters in this, and there's a lot of storylines going into this, including the fact that Kenny Omega and is going to be facing off against the other member of the Golden Lovers in Kota Ibushi.
Right.
The last night of the tournament. Like they're building to that. They're probably going to have them be tied, and one of them's going to have to beat the other one to go through to the finals, something like that.
Yep.
Other stories. You've got Juice Robinson. Tama Tonga is going to be in the same bracket as Kenny Omega as well, and probably gunning for him and any other members of Bullet Club. You've got we've got Kazuchika Okada in Block A. And he's going to have to go through people like Minoru Suzuki and Tanahashi and Jay White, and Evil and a bunch of other, and Bad Luck Fale. It's going to be an absolutely monstrous event. And I'm so looking forward to this. I'm going to be watching so much New Japan over the next month. My eyes are going to bleed.
Be ready for the shows to be a little New Japan heavy over the course of the next few weeks, because it's a nice break. So between now and SummerSlam, we can focus a little bit more on what's going on in the tournament.
Absolutely. And, especially coming off of Extreme Rules, like it's a good chance, if you haven't been in New Japan, if you want to learn who some of these big guys in New Japan are, it's a great way to do it, because you have tons of matches, a lot of these personalities playing off each other. A lot of storylines are coming together for this.
And there's a loser-style bracketology, or what do they call it? Win-loss bracketology system that goes into each of these, almost similar to like a World Cup or something like that, where you have wins and losses, and certain losers face off against each other, and
it's like the opening round of the World Cup. Yeah. Only it goes on for a month. It's a round robin with tons of guys. I've actually got a really cool wall chart of it. I'm going to put up in the Facebook discussion group, so anyone who wants to play along with the G1 Climax can do so at their discretion.
Nice. Heading over to the Temple, let's talk about what went down in Lucha Underground this week really quickly before we get to our listener questions. I've not seen it yet because I buy it on iTunes, and we don't get it until the next day, which is today. So, more wrestling I've got to watch this weekend to get caught up. But Ian, what went down on Lucha Underground last night?
Well, it's actually, again, Lucha Underground is making some big moves on every show where they're killing off characters right and left. This week, Matanza sacrificed Cortez Castro to the gods, a guy who's been there since the first season.
First episode, I think he was there.
Yeah, he was a member of the crew back in the day, and he turned out to be a cop. He was really a double agent. Also, at the end of the show, this was trippy as hell. You remember at the end of last season, Masquerade Sagrada, the Rabbit Tribe were saying he was the White Rabbit, and he was weirded out at first. All of a sudden, he seemed to know what they were talking about and said, "I'll lead you to the White Rabbit." Well, this week he said, "I'll lead you to the White Rabbit, but to do so, you got to do this," and then they murder him and smear themselves in his blood.
Wow.
Yeah. It's hard to describe because it's really trippy.
If you don't watch, Masquerita Sagrada is a little person. I don't know what you.
He's a mini.
He's a mini. That's the word I was looking for. Thank you. So it's an interesting dynamic to have someone who is the Rabbit Tribe chasing around a mini.
Dressed in white.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. No, and I have a feeling the Rabbit Tribe is going to get into some really weird stuff if the preview for the season was any indication.
Oh, yeah.
The fact that they started off with killing Masquerade Sagrada and bathing in his blood is a good indication of where things are going.
I mean, we're going till Thanksgiving, folks. We got a long way to go.
And I can't wait. That was weird as hell. But we also had a match between... It was a triple threat between all three members of the Trios Championship team.
So Killshot, the Mac, and
Son of Havoc. All had a match, and the two winners, basically the person who got pinned, would not receive an Aztec medallion. So the guy who doesn't get pinned and the guy who does the pinning gets the Aztec medallions. And the Mac ended up standing tall, and both Havoc and Killshot were knocked out. And he was like, "Who do I pin?" He pinned Killshot. So he and Son of Havoc get a medallion. But now the trios, they're not looking so good. Killshot was not happy about that.
Bad blood between the Mac and Killshot,
as you can understand. In the main event, you had Cage having to go through Mil Muertes to get the Pentagon Jr. As you'd imagine,
wait to watch this.
It was hard hitting. It was brutal. Not as gnarly as the three-way between the two of them and what is it? Whatever we call him, Sammy Callahan's character from last season, but Jeremiah Crane. Yeah. Was not as brutal as that, but it was definitely hard hitting. At one point, Cage was out in the audience cheering for himself, and Pentagon jumped up, pulled off a hoodie, and beat the crap out of him, sent him back in the ring to take a flatliner. Katrina refused to give the lick of death. which is interesting. Maybe eating the 1,000 souls of Phoenix has changed her somewhat.
Changed, giving her a bad. Never mind. I'm not going to go down there.
Yeah, maybe she's going face. Nah.
Please don't.
But yeah, next week we're getting Pentagon Jr. versus the Machine, Cage.
Oh boy.
We'll see what happens there. Cage may die.
Well,
or he might lose an arm. I'll tell you that.
Well, hey, let's head over and do some listener questions because there's quite a few of you guys. Sorry if we don't get to your questions this week. There have been so many of them, and we love you guys for it. We're trying to pick out the best ones or consolidate ones that are similar so that we can answer them at the same time. But we've started off at the opening here what we're going to call the Brock section.
We had a lot of Brock questions.
There's a lot of Brock chatter
As you would understand, that was kind of the big deal this week. Yeah. You know, we had, let's see, Jasper Lynch was asking if they should strip Brock from his title and if they should do a match at SummerSlam with Lashley, Reigns, Balor, Joe, Braun, and Drew for the title, or like other people to get rid of the Universal belt.
Right.
So basically the question, should they strip Brock of his title? Nicholas Yates said, do you think that Brock will make it to SummerSlam after the UFC thing, or do they have Braun do a cash-in? So basically, here's two options we're being given so far. Do they strip him? Does Braun cash in before SummerSlam? Or Edward Acrease asks, will Braun cash in at the UFC match, which is going to be all the way next year? He says, just kidding, but what do you think the plan for Brock would be if, say, he gets injured during the fight and the title's away for longer? So really quickly, let me hit up Edward Acree, because that match, the UFC match, is not going to be until at least January.
Right.
And there's no way they're keeping the title on him until January.
No.
There's no freaking way. So, you know, the other questions were, does he make it to SummerSlam? Does Braun cash in before SummerSlam, or do they strip him of the title before SummerSlam?
I think he makes it to SummerSlam and he drops the title to, it's what we thought would happen at WrestleMania. He's going to drop the title to Roman Reigns. And I think Braun may have a failed cash in on Roman Reigns. That's kind of where my headspace is at right now.
If I think that the smart thing to do would have Braun have a legit cash in on Roman
flip
Reigns.
It around and have Roman Reigns win, but have Braun immediately cash in.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And then you have a whole program between the two of them, and Brock can go
beautiful.
Juice himself
off
up.
Brock.
Yeah,
whatever.
Go piss in a cup, which you're gonna have to do a lot. But yeah, I don't think they're gonna strip him.
No.
The fact that they have just come out and said that he's booked for SummerSlam, I think means that he will make it to SummerSlam as the Universal Champion.
Well, that would also sully the whole movement they had about he's now the longest reigning title holder, whatever, beat CM Punk's record. I think it would sully that if they just went out and stripped him of it.
Yeah.
It is what it is at this point.
Although I do like the idea of having a huge match for the title at SummerSlam, like Jasper was talking about, where it's just a big cluster of all the biggest guys. Yeah. I wouldn't be mad at that. Let's see some other questions here. Do you think, it's from Jay Hovell, do you think the writing on the wall, do you think the writing is on the wall for New Day as they are now on the pre-show?
No,
not at all.
Far from it. They're continuing to innovate. As much as you can innovate with pancakes and food items, foodstuffs, but they've gone from, what was it? It was cereal,
unicorn horns,
something. So they're continuing to do their thing. They're having a blast. The up, down stuff that Xavier Woods is doing is just blowing up and huge. They are fine.
Let me put it this way. I don't think the fact that they're on the pre-show is indicative that their time is up. I think it's just they're starting to wind down. I really do. I think the new day will not survive into the new year. I think that they will split up sometime in the future, in the probably near future.
Yeah.
I don't think the pre-show is indicative of that. I think it's indicative of a huge card where they're not fighting for a belt. The fact that they're facing off against one of the hottest new teams on SmackDown Live in a tables match. The fact that last year they were also on the pre-show against the Usos.
Multiple times.
A couple times. Is a sign, and they see that as motivation. Oh, we're on the pre-show? Cool. We're going to steal the show.
Yeah, exactly.
So, no, I don't think that's writing on the wall at all. But I do think that they're probably going to split them up at some point in the relatively near future.
Next up, Ryan Rugani brought up an interesting point that I had not really considered yet, and it's around the idea that Daniel Bryan continues to deliver these ideas for the programs, and he continues to get turned down, but he's not mad at it because he's just happy to be back. Are we seeing the beginnings of the potential exit of Daniel Bryan from the WWE to go off and start another thing, a la All In or something like that would just completely blow up around him in a good way?
what Ryan Rugani actually said, and it was nice to meet him. Nice to meet you, Ryan, at the G1. Was that Daniel Bryan might leave and start an absolute revolution of pro wrestling, because his quote in the WWE was that he doesn't say anything because he's just happy to be back. Right. So there is a possibility of that. Yes, his contract expires at the end of August. He absolutely could not renew his contract and go off and do his own thing on the indies. And as we've seen with some of these guys like Cody and the Young Bucks, etc., he could go out and probably make a really good living. But he would also have to hustle his ass off, much like Cody and the Young Bucks do, and fly all over the world with a new baby at home. I think,
and a wife that's running like 5 businesses.
Yeah, exactly.
They're crazy busy right now.
I personally think it's a lot.
And I only know
more,
that because I watch Total Bellas. So I'm just full disclosure.
Of course you do. I think it's much more likely that he re-signs. And from what I'm hearing, as far as early rumors, as far as things that they're teasing with him, like teasing the Miz feud this week.
Samoa Joe.
The possibility of an actual Samoa Joe feud, which Nick has been touching himself over for a few months now, and I don't blame him. I don't see Daniel Bryan going anywhere else.
Look,
I really don't.
Bryan Danielson has done the indie scene. He did it for 10 plus years before he ever got to the WWE. He knows what that life is like. He knows where his bread's buttered. He's got it really good at the WWE, and that's why he's being quoted as saying things like, I don't say anything because I'm happy to be back.
Yeah, I'm happy to be getting paid this amount of money and not having to go bust my ass and break my hiney every night on the indies. He does like the stiffer form of wrestling. He's gone on record as saying that.
Yeah.
Here's the thing that I think is going to happen is that he's going to, he probably will in some of these meetings tease, well, I can always go to the indies, and just as a way to getting a nicer paycheck. I think WWE would be crazy not to pay that man his money.
Yeah.
After everything that he's done in that company.
Pay that man his money. We're not going to start doing Malkovich
his
again.
Money.
We're not going to start
Pay
doing that
this
again.
man his money.
All right, next up, Corey Roberts asked, after seeing the G1 special and hearing about Takahashi's injury, I was wondering, what are your thoughts on WWE's, quote, safe style of wrestling, given the numerous injuries over the past couple of years? I'm assuming in New Japan that he's referring to.
Well, yeah, because the sort of the feeling is that New Japan, they kind of kill each other a little bit more. It is inarguably stiffer. They also work a lot less shows. Sure. WWE, they're working two major shows plus a house show a week, plus all the travel and that grind. I mean, the thing you hear about all the time in WWE is the grind. And one of the reasons why they work a bit of a safer style in WWE is to be able to maintain
endurance. Yeah.
Yeah. You're taking a lot more smaller bumps, whereas in New Japan, you take fewer, stronger bumps. So
once a month or so.
Right. And also you have some guys who are willing to go out there and try some more high risk moves. With the particular move as it relates to Takahashi, the move was just a botched move. I'm not even sure what the hell they were trying to do with that move. And I've seen a lot of Takahashi matches where he goes for really, really dangerous moves, but executes them flawlessly. And at some point that will catch up with you. It happened with Will Ospreay and Marty Scurll earlier this year at WrestleMania weekend, or just before WrestleMania weekend, excuse me. But it happens as I think that Corey's pointing out here, it happens in all over the place. You've got Dean Ambrose, who's currently out with an arm injury in WWE. Fandango and Goldust are currently out. Goldust because of his knees, but Fandango because of a shoulder injury. Like, injuries are going to happen in this sport, in this activity. Like, it's going to happen. Obviously, you want to try to avoid the really scary, horrific ones, like Shibata, like potentially what could have happened to Takahashi. But that being said, I really don't know that I agree with the idea that WWE is so much safer than New Japan. I think they just have to work a different way because they have a different schedule. Yeah. And in some ways it might actually give them more wear and tear in the long run.
Yeah. Well, next up, Deuce Elefante. What's up, man? Regarding 205 Live, who dethrones Cedric Alexander and when?
Yikes.
For me, it's Ali or Buddy Murphy. It's
really? Still?
One of the two, yeah. I think Buddy Murphy's probably going to be your next champion. Go from a face to a heel. The match they had, I just don't know who's next if we've moved on past those feuds.
Well, Buddy Murphy is going into a feud with the Lucha House Party right now. Drew Gulak came out this week and said he was gunning for Cedric Alexander, so I think it's Gulak.
Okay.
And I think it could happen anytime in the next couple of months. But or Cedric gets past Gulak. I'm not sure, but after him, I don't know who it would be. Cedric had a pretty strong win this week, so
against
that's a good question.
Yeah.
Eric Elledge asks, what do you think the ceiling is for Drew McIntyre? Can you see him being the face of the company over guys like Roman and Lashley? Also, do you think Becky can carry either women's division if given the opportunity? So let's look at this one at a time.
Yep.
What is Drew? Let's ignore the ceiling for Drew McIntyre. Let's just go straight for, can we see him being the face of the company over guys like Roman and Lashley?
100% yes.
Yes, absolutely. That's the ceiling, is the guy.
And I think that is the plan.
I hope that's
You've certainly
the plan.
got Roman, you've got Braun maybe in there, and I think Drew is the next one.
This is not the chosen one Drew McIntyre anymore. This is world season, come back from heartbreak. Drew McIntyre fixed his game. This dude can absolutely take your company places. And I can tell you that from seeing him live at an NXT event. The dude is legit.
I got to chat with him for 30 seconds and take a picture with him when we were there in Riverside. And just a nice world-class kind of dude.
Well, he gives you the feeling of being the guy.
Yeah.
He really does give you that feeling. And that's something that you can't teach, Enzo.
What I would say to counter that is I could also see AJ Styles doing it, but if you want the Vince McMahon WWE prototypical big dude being the face, it's Drew McIntyre, and absolutely I can see that over Roman Reigns and Bobby Lashley, of course.
Yeah, and he's got the look.
Yep.
He's completely got the look. As far as Becky, yes, I do think she can. She needs to be given a push and the time that's involved in that. I don't think that she's a superstar on the level of, say, Charlotte, who just has that ephemeral something, kind of like Drew McIntyre, but Becky absolutely can be the face of a division.
Yeah. I'm 50-50 on Becky still. Like I said a few weeks ago. I don't know. Could she care? She certainly did at one time when they first did the brand split in the draft.
And no one questioned it.
And nobody we were all like, hell yeah, she's the SmackDown Live Women's Champion. Since then,
she hasn't. In my opinion, she has not fallen as far as Sasha and Bayley as far as the original
Agreed.
4 horsewomen. She still has some feeling of legitimacy around her. They haven't buried her like those two, but so they have more work to do on those two, I think, than they do on Becky, who I think they're building back up.
Yeah. Wait, next up, Brandon Monroe asked us, what was your first memory? Oh, I love this question. What was your first memory of pro wrestling, and how has it impacted your view on wrestling? I'll let you go first on this. What was your first memory of pro wrestling?
Oh, my first memory. You see, here's the problem: is I was pretty young, so it's all kind of muddled together, and I don't really remember which really happened first. But it's a lot of when I think about what would be the first one. There's like the Jake the Snake and Macho Man feud where the Cobra was biting Macho Man's arm while he was trapped in the ropes. There was Macho and Miss Elizabeth getting back together. The Superpowers breaking up. Earthquake sitting on Damien with Jake the Snake. A lot of Jake the Snake and Macho Man memories in my first. A lot of from that era, and I'm trying to remember what was together, like Bobby the Brain and Mr. Perfect. So it's hard for me to think what actually was the first memory. I'd have to go back and see, like in reality, which one of those was first.
Yeah,
like what actually came first, so I could say that's my first memory. But how it's affected me. I mean, geez, I like Jake the Snake and Macho Man over anything else. I think that's pretty much defined who I like in wrestling ever since. And the fact that I was drawn to stuff like Jake the Snake sicking his snake on Macho Man. That's probably why I loved ECW back in the day. That's why I love like a little bit more edge in my matches and stuff where you can't tell if things are real or not, or if they're so real that you question what you're seeing, really. Yeah. And as far as the Superpowers breaking up, the feeling that you can't trust anybody. Yeah. So I'd say that's mine. What about yours, sir?
Well, my first memory of pro wrestling was when I was less than 10 years old, but I don't remember what age. I have distinct memories of going over to my grandfather's house with him chain smoking Chesterfield non-filters just constantly, and he had one of those giant I think I've told you this on the show before. They had one of those giant satellite dishes in the yard, so he could watch the territory stuff in the 80s. And I distinctly remember Iron Sheik because of the headdress and because of everything else. And I distinctly remember Ric Flair. and I can remember personalities. I can't remember matches. The hard part about this question is distinguishing between what you've gone back and watched as an adult or as a teen versus what you actually remember seeing when you were a little kid. So that's where I get hung up on. I can distinctly remember seeing the Iron Sheik and Ric Flair, and I feel like Andre the Giant. I have those memories of doing that. But I remember more that I was at my grandfather's house and trying to figure out how to work that giant satellite dish, because you would basically put in like it was a G1 or a E4, and that would tell you what quadrant it would turn. That's what I remember about it. It has nothing to do with wrestling. It's just what we were watching while I was tinkering with the satellite dish. I have to go back to... I went through a whole gap through high school and all of this stuff. I didn't come back to wrestling really until the early Attitude Era, probably 97-ish.
Same.
Probably Steve Austin, King of the Ring-ish time frame. We were getting into DX. The Attitude Era was blossoming. And I was all in at that. That was post-college, so I was into my late teens and early 20s and just loving it and just sitting around drinking beer and watching The Rock and Steve Austin and and DX do their thing. That really cemented my love of professional wrestling, which made me go back and watch tons of old stuff.
Yeah, I probably missed like 4 or 5 years there in the 90s too, and I had to go back and get all the VHS tapes, and I still got reams of VHS tapes and all the ECW crap. It's funny, I was just thinking about it and like what stuff I remember watching. Rock and Wrestling, the cartoon that they actually now have on the WWE network for $9.99. Yeah, some episodes. I remember watching that as a kid, and that was the one I could get away with. My parents walked in and saw me watching that. They would be like, "He's watching the cartoon." They watch and I'm watching wrestling, and it was like the barrage began. It's like, why are you watching this crap? This is so violent. Do you know it's fake, right? Like the typical all this stuff now. And whereas now that we're doing this podcast, my mom loves to tell everybody, "Oh, he was a Hulk Hogan fan as a kid." I was not, Mom. No. That's the only person you know in wrestling. That's the only person you know, so that's what you bring up. Anyway, moving on, one last question. Aaron Collier says, fantasy booking question. Ooh. Eddie Guerrero in his WWE prime, who would you book him against now from any promotion? Like Omega versus Eddie would be amazing, or Eddie versus Andre Cien Almas, Eddie versus Adam Cole. Who you got, Nick?
I'm going to be real quick here and not get into it because we're way long at this point. Eddie Guerrero versus AJ Styles. I'll just leave it there, and you guys can all over yourselves. That's the match. That's it.
That's yours?
That's mine.
Eddie versus Ricochet.
Oh. See, that very close second. I think I would love to have either one of those.
Yeah, I mean, really, Eddie versus anybody, because that would mean Eddie's still wrestling, and that would be the ultimate. He could be wrestling James Ellsworth, and I'd be happy.
Yeah.
So,
all right, Ian, 60 seconds, lightning round, other news to wrap up the show. Ready, set, go.
Caitlyn is returning to WWE in the Mae Young Classic. She was a former Divas champ and winner of NXT Season 3 back when it was a reality show. So Caitlyn will be back. Also, Rhea Ripley will be back for the Mae Young Classic as well.
She's looking real jacked, baby.
She made an impression last time. That's a chick who could go a long way in WWE. Great look, lots of athleticism.
Lots of upside, too, as well. Much
Charisma.
like Toni Storm, she's only 21 years old, so big future for some of these ladies that are coming up in the next generation of women's wrestling.
Speaking of ladies, Tessa Blanchard just signed a 2-year contract with Impact. Looks like she's going to become the female face of Impact, although there's some other pretty good contenders over there. They're building up another pretty good women's division over there.
Fantastic.
This came out. Staples Center was almost the host of All In.
What?
Yeah, right here in LA. And so I'm really bummed about this.
Damn it!
Apparently,
that would have made everything better.
We could have actually gone to it and not have to spend thousands and thousands of dollars on plane tickets and hotel rooms.
If we could have even gotten them.
Yeah, if we could have gotten tickets, right. But apparently Staples Center said they only wanted wrestling from WWE. Smells like someone else needs to go the way of Madison Square Garden, methinks. Needs to be convinced by Ring of Honor and New Japan. We mentioned that Goldust had double knee surgery and Fandango had shoulder surgery, both of them out for at least 6 months. And finally, we will be going to PWG's Tremendous event tomorrow night in downtown Los Angeles. We'll be talking about that next week on the show.
Yes. Well, thank you very much for those updates, Ian. Let's get out of here, guys. Thank you very much for tuning in to yet another episode of the Busted Wide Open podcast. As we said at the top of the show, be sure you come over to Facebook and join the Busted Wide Open discussion group. Hang out in there. That's where we post all of our big announcements for all of our fans and listeners. You can just search for it on Facebook and find it there. Also on Twitter at BWO Podcast. Come follow us there. And if you like what we're doing, we are going live here in a couple of weeks. We're going to be doing a live test event next Monday, right after Extreme Rules. So I will put something up in the Facebook group for that. But earmark August 2nd, 5 p.m. Pacific time. Thursdays at 5 p.m. we are going to be live on YouTube live streaming the recording of the show. I think is the right way to say it.
We are going to be doing a recap and analysis episode of Extreme Rules this coming Monday. Right after we record that at 3 p.m. Pacific, we are doing our live test. That's where it all starts and kicks off. And then we'll be doing our regular show next Thursday where we're talking about the G1. After that starts kicking off, we're talking about the Fallout shows, Raw and SmackDown from Extreme Rules, NXT 205 Live, and everything else we can get our grubby little hands on.
Yes, if you want to support this show, every little dollar counts, and we're going to have some new tiers very soon, but head over to patreon.com.
Like Tears for Fears?
Not Tears for Fears, tiers of patronage.
Oh, I see.
With all kinds of really cool rewards. We've got it all worked out. I've just got to go update it. You can head over to patreon.com/BWO and sign up, throw a couple of bucks in the tip jar for us, help us move forward and continue to produce this, your favorite wrestling podcast. And last but certainly not least, we're going to have some new designs up on the store at orbitaljigsaw.com/store, along with all of the other shows from Orbital Jigsaw.
And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe our show on the podcast app of your choice.
And on YouTube.
And now on YouTube, yes. And we will be actually streaming live. You can see our ugly mugs up on YouTube coming very soon. And as well as many other podcast platforms. The best thing you can do, however, is tell a friend. You have any buddies, any people you know who like wrestling, who are at least a little bit interested in wrestling, send them our way. And if you like our show, give us some feedback. Shoot up a comment or a review on your podcast app of choice or on Facebook. Let us know what you think. We love making the show something a little bit more like what you want to enjoy every time you listen in.
But I'm Nick Howell. You can find me on Twitter at Nick Podcasts.
And I'm Sir Ian Dangerous. You can find me on Twitter at Sir Ian Dangerous.
But by God,
somebody stop the damn match!
This show is part of the Orbital Jigsaw Network. For more episodes, subscribe to us on iTunes, Google Play, or Stitcher Radio. For details and show notes from each episode, check us out, orbitaljigsaw.com.